The Man with the Golden Gun is now 50 years old and remains one of the most entertaining entries in the series. Roger Moore was back for his second Bond film and amazingly released just 18 months after Live and Let Die. This was the zany mid-70s with so many strange but iconic images and scenes forming the essence of our childhoods. After the monster box office success of both Diamonds Are Forever and then Roger's debut, director Guy Hamilton was back for his third film in a row to cement the franchise into another decade. Bond was off to the Far East to confront the mysterious assassin, take part in sumo and martial arts, wear a third nipple, and solve the energy crisis. Born to play a Bond villain, Christopher Lee was perfectly cast, bringing charm and danger to a fascinating character. Equally fascinating was his second-in-command, Nick Nack, who both seemed to admire and resent his boss, providing some comedic and scary moments. John Barry only had a few weeks to provide the score and the song and wasn't satisfied with the results, yet his haunting and melodic music fits perfectly for the film and its breathtaking scenery, and Lulu gives the title song some real oomph. We had two very different Bond girls. Both were endearing, but whilst Britt Eklund's Merry Goodnight was a little helpless and hapless, Maud Adams' Miss Anders was captivating and tragic. And if all this wasn't enough, we had the return of the divisive Sheriff J.W. Pepper. Who knows why his wife took him out of the bayou to Thailand, but all our lives are richer for it. He even got to take part in one of the very best stunts in the whole series. These are just some of the many parts that created a 007 classic. And whilst many fans now dismiss it as nonsensical and juvenile, we want to celebrate why it remains so original and memorable. We gathered to discuss why we love the film so much, and it was great to have so many of you contribute with your thoughts.
Originally, I went to the cinema to see Juggernaut with Richard Harris, and one of the trailers was for Man with the Golden Gun. So that's what made me aware of it. To this day, I still cannot remember what I knew of Bond before 1974. Obviously, they haven't been on the television because that was the year after. So I still don't know what, apart from this trailer, what made me aware of it. I went to the cinema when I knew it was on, and in those days they used to play the films in a loop. So you could, whatever time of day you went in. If you were lucky, right at the beginning of the film, if not halfway through, half at the end. I'd walked in while Scaramanga was meeting High Fat. So as I walked in, he was just putting the gun together to shoot him. And then I realised after that there was all these other films. So from the next year, they were playing them as double bills at the cinema. So I went to see Dr. No and Goldfinger. Plus, they played a rerun of Live and Let Die after The Man with the Golden Gun, about 2 or 3 months after.
I would have seen it, it would have been on television, mid-80s, something like that. It was certainly, I want to say it would be before Octopussy or probably A View to a Kill. So mid-80s on television, and as Bob will vouch for, at that time, when a Bond movie was shown on television, it was always 9 times out of 10 was a Saturday or a Sunday night. And often it would make the front cover of the Radio Times or the TV Times, I beg your pardon.
And you got them all, Tom?
No, you mean the Radio Times things?
Yeah.
No, it's somebody else in that WhatsApp group, isn't it? Who is it?
Tim Greaves.
I can't remember, but he gets all the cuttings from maybe premieres of Radio Times. So obviously
these are TV Times we're looking at particularly, because it was only Radio Times. Radio Times was just BBC at the time, and then you had the TV Times as well. But yes, they were that there is, I think it is Tim who has access to all of these remarkable. It's an extraordinary
I'm just
catalogue.
looking now. Man with the Golden Gun was shown on Christmas Day, 1981.
Right. Oh, okay. So it would have been for Your Eyes Only. Yeah, I'd have seen For Your Eyes Only, and then that would have happened on the television. So
what a time to be alive!
Just magnificent. It really was.
Two very serious Roger performances.
Yeah.
Top draw. And I hadn't seen Live and Let Die, I don't think, by that time. When because I saw Man with the Golden Gun first, as a television one anyway, Live and Let Die has always been, it's always been my least favorite Roger in that respect. I think there's an awful lot going on to take into consideration, whereas Man with the Golden Gun is him after a character, doing the thing, visiting him, doing all that stuff that later we got associated with the character. And Christopher Lee's in it, and the two of them are terrific together. And there's, the girls and the midget and all of that sort of stuff, all that. So it's terrific. And it's a real, it's a travel log, or going to these places that you'd never had a chance to see before. But it was great. And I don't think we had the facility of recording it then, but we did when it came around the next time round. I would record them, so I had them all on VHS.
I think I have early memories of this because it was a favorite as a kid. I think of all of the films that feel like they were the most often repeated, this and A View to a Kill were on the highest kind of turnover of obviously, but yeah, I loved it. So when I kind of got more into it and read the criticism of the film, I was a little bit like, what are you talking about?
All right.
What's your problem? What's wrong with the slide whistle? What's wrong? And everyone has their long list of stuff that is like, oh, if they just did that and that. I was a bit like, but that's just the film, and I love that film.
Yeah,
exactly. It suddenly really does open your eyes, and you think, oh god, wow, I must watch something different. But yeah, that was one. I don't think I had it taped off TV, but it was the one whenever it was on, I was like, oh yes, I can't wait to watch it because of the, particularly because of the gun, love the gadget, watching Christopher Lee, who I knew because of his own sort of particular career. So it just felt like this sort of bonanza. He was so famous as well, and I felt like, and that was the first kind of Bond film where I thought, because obviously like A View to a Kill is like, I didn't really know Christopher Walken, I hadn't seen any of his films prior to that. So Christopher Lee was, in my mind, was just as famous as Roger Moore. So seeing them on screen together was a big thing. I remember that.
He was well known as Dracula, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Why were you watching that though? You shouldn't have been watching that. You shouldn't have been watching The Wicker Man. But it is a childhood film, isn't it? I'm sure Ernie likes it.
Oh yeah, it was Ernie's favourite for a very long time. I think because it moves really quickly. You don't really need to worry too much about the plot. You just know that he's trying to kill Bond, and that's it, really. And eventually, he's going to catch up with him, and it's silly as well. And as a kid, the fun aspect for it is really appealing. And I know as adults, you can look at the kung fu fights and the I suppose the sexual politics of it and things like that, and kind of, but as a kid, it was just, this is silly and fun and felt harmless. You could obviously question that now, but yeah, he really loved it as a kid. But for the same reason, it's the Golden Gun is just so iconic, and the idea of being able to put this thing together and one shot, and it's made of gold. It's all these like ticking so many of these boxes of what's so exciting to a kid.
And again, with everything and with all of these fans and all these people who love Bond, there's always that key bunch of people who go, well, it's not From Russia with Love, is it? And you go, well, it's not supposed to be.
No,
it is. From Russia with Love is From Russia with Love. And this is as silly as massively important. There has to be silly, particularly with Roger. You couldn't do as much silly with Sean, because he was a very different character. But Roger said, let me do silly, bring silly on, and I can deal with it. And he does deal with it. There's a number of set pieces and scenes in this film which are just silly. But because Roger's part of it, he makes it just flow from one bar
Yeah.
moment to the next. The beats are all in the right place. It's glorious, you know, and it's huge fun to watch from start to finish. And I would say, you know, it is a. I've always said if somebody said, well, I've got a young kid, is that my son is 7 or 8 or whatever, and they want to see a film, a Bond film, what would they say? Well, Octopussy's a good start because it's got clowns in it for a start. Who doesn't like clowns? There's a lot of people who don't like clowns. But you know, for the purpose of clowns, a circus and silly and bits and pieces, and Man with the Golden Gun is very similar. And then when they're slightly older and they want to do a bit more action adventure, then Spy Who Loved Me is ideal because it's got everything, you know, and you move it on from there. But I'm complete agreement with that the silly is massively important, and Roger sails through it like a pro because he's been doing that type of thing for years.
Well, I would follow on from that, John, and say Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, because you go to the realms of space.
Moonrakers seem to have a renaissance, that it had a reputation maybe for being a bit silly, and that was too far, step too far. But recently it's become quite well loved again, hasn't it, by Bond fans?
100%.
Being silly,
you know, I wonder what the world would be like if Philip Blatchford hadn't been born.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would be a very, very, very dark place if there wasn't a daily update. On this day in 1978, they did this on Moonraker. Wow, you know, he's gone to all these lengths. But that's the thing. It touched so many people. There aren't people doing that with, Goldfinger and Thunderball and Moonraker, because it's got that massive appeal. And I think that's it. Moonraker wouldn't have been Moonraker if it hadn't been for Live and Let Die.
Absolutely.
Man with the Golden Gun and Spy Who Loved Me, absolutely. But the Man with the Golden Gun is that tricky second album. You know, you've got your Live and Let Die. Well, that's you know, you've got Paul McCartney doing this, and it's about voodoo, and it's on the money, and it's all these different people, and it's got lots of big characters. Follow that, and 12 months later, they follow it with Man with the Golden Gun, which wasn't received as well as. But as we are now discussing it 50 years on, it really is one of those movies that you go, yeah, I really like that. And there's loads of reasons why I liked it. So it's massively important.
So I would have been, I think it was 7, well, when I was 7, 8 years old. We're talking 1998, 99. So my first love of Bond, true love, Live and Let Die. Obviously, till the day I die, I will always say that. And then, because I loved it that much, my mum and dad for Christmas bought me Live and Let Die, Man with the Golden Gun on VHS for Christmas, and that was my calling for 007. And I always remember watching those two films religiously. I've got vague memories of going to school and my dad having to tell me, right, enough's enough. It was the kung fu fight scene, and they're obviously having all the punch-ups. Bond escapes. He gets left behind. Seriously, can't they just stop the car? Can't they stop the car?
Joie Vejjajiva played one of Lieutenant Hip's nieces in The Man with the Golden Gun, a very funny part, and she just elaborated on this a little bit further. Joy, can you tell us about the scenes with your uncle when you're in the car and there's a scene where Roger Moore tries to join you, and then he doesn't get in the car and they wave him off. What's going on there?
No, I think he was supposed to come in the other side. He closed the door for us, and he's supposed to go around the other side and get in the car.
Yeah.
But my uncle in the movie just drove off and thought that he was.
Because a lot of Bond fans are like, "Why? That's awful. Why did they just drive off and leave him there?"
No, he thought he was in the car. He thought he was getting in. And then he shut the door for me, and then he went around the other side.
Yeah.
And the car just drove off because Sunte goes thought that, okay, he's in the car, so let's go.
Good. Well, that explains it. That's helpful again.
Yeah, I mean, it highlights what a rubbish agent Hip is, but I mean, we'll have to.
Honestly, for crying out loud, he had enough time just to grab on. And he even says, hang on, and then he leaves him behind anyway.
He even closes the door.
Exactly. So basically, I remember watching that scene, and obviously the speedboat chase with Chula. And literally, as Bond's driving off and as JW has gone into the lake, my dad's saying, right, enough's enough, you've got to go to school. Disappointing. Disappointing.
Oh, see, this is where I'd have fallen out with my father if that had happened.
So I remember Golden Gun vividly, and I share my sentiments with Tom. This is one of my personal favourites. I adore this film.
Really?
It's bombastic, it's ostentatious, it's over the top. It's everything you want from a Bond film. As John said, this is the tricky second album, but my God, did they knock it out of the park. And for Roger as well. And this is the weird thing. It's over the top, it's camp, it's cheesy, it's all the things you love and know from Roger. But on the flip side, you've got the elements where they're trying to steal from Connery, i.e. when he's with Maud Adams and he's slapping her. He's trying to be Connery, it doesn't work. But then later on in the film, he becomes Roger again. And that's the Roger that we know and love. And that's when he runs with it. And we get The Spy Who Loved Me, we get Moonraker and everything we know and love. But for me, this film goes right back to my childhood, my early days of 007. It's a love affair. And it's 50 years old. And that's testament to its quality. So for me, Golden Gun is one of the best Bond films. And I will defend it to the hilt until the day I die.
This must be one of the rare times where there's 8 of us in a room, a virtual room, who all like The Man with the Golden Gun.
Mm.
And these days, that's a rare thing, isn't it? Goodness me.
100%.
You'll always find somebody who hates it.
Well, I hope
but hates it with a passion. But you know, there are so many reasons to like it.
Yeah.
That I find it difficult to just throw it away at this stage. But it's a massively important picture for the rest of those Roger pictures, and certainly for clearly our upbringings.
Yeah.
The fact is, people hate this film. They criticize this film. If you don't like this film, you don't like this film. But they compare it to From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, later films like License to Kill, Daylights. It's not meant to be those films. This is meant to be cheesy 70s kung fu humor. And you know what? Roll with it. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But for me, this is a class act through and through.
So good.
That was a party political broadcast on behalf of Guy Hamilton.
Yeah. Didn't even Guy Hamilton say he regrets me? I don't want to talk about that.
I think he only did it for the paycheck, and there was a whole bunch of bits which he wanted, which weren't. Harry Saltzman had promised him an elephant stampede, for God's sake. I mean, there was a whole. He's got all these elephant shoes all bought. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that hadn't actually happened, but they did the very best with it, and it's great fun. I love it. I've always taken people with free nipples very seriously since that. And I was talking with a doctor friend of mine, and it's very common. I didn't realise it's very, very common having a superfluous papilla. It is very, very common.
Can I just say that actually Harry Styles has a superfluous papilla?
You've got a superb what?
He's a pop star, John.
Harry Styles has a third.
Harry Styles. Yeah.
Can the third one appear anywhere on your body, or is it
anywhere on your body? Yeah.
So it could be that on your heel.
Yeah. So
funny place to have a breast, but yes, I'm prepared to accept that you can. It doesn't necessarily have to be attached to the mammary or that area that's considered the mammary, but thanks for the mammary. But it is acceptable to have it anywhere on your body because it is it's structured in a very different way to a standard mole or something of that nature that you would have elsewhere. So it is very common. It's fascinating. I never realised that. This is where we do Truth and Dare now, and you're
going to say that 1 in 8 men have one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it must be. The way it's revealed is, I mean, I can only think of that because I've seen it so many times and it's embedded in my brain. But how weird for audiences, they haven't even seen James Bond yet, and they just
he's drying with a towel and then lowers the towel, and there it is. You go, wow. Yeah. Not unattractive on Christopher Lee,
No.
if the truth be known. If he had to remove a sock and find it on his heel, then that might not have worked from a cinematic point of view.
John Barry would have put a different cue to it, I think.
He'd have put a slide whistle in it or something of that nature.
To be fair, am I the only one? When I was young, I actually struggled to work out which was the real nipple and which was prosthetic. And
the beauty of costume design and special effects. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Only later down the line did I realise which one was the real one and which one was the prosthetic. So
I was always working on the basis that the one that wasn't
level, spirit level,
opposite the other one was likely to be
slightly darker as well.
Yes,
exactly.
Slightly darker.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if it was accepted quickly by the audience because it is Christopher Lee. And therefore, you've got
very true.
An aura of the supernatural.
Yes.
Going, so you sort of accept it straight away.
And
also, it's a Bond film, so there are, disfigurements and slightly odd characters is part of the course. Mm-hmm. But it is a strong opening.
They first reveal Maud Adams to whet your appetite, and then you get Christopher Reeve doing the topless shot, going, well, that wasn't where I was expecting this to go.
Is it in the novel?
There's not a lot in the novel, to be fair.
No, I don't think so, no.
No. They're more concerned about Bond being brainwashed, if memory serves.
Right, yeah.
And M being the victim.
It was more like a Western, wasn't it, the book?
Yeah. I think that was the reference in part of the Funhouse that they wanted to create that sort of Western environment and had the saloon doors and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, the ending, the duel. There's a lot of Western.
The duel, it's like High Noon at the end, isn't it? Yeah.
Honestly, if ever I'm cooking and I'm using this particular condiment, I will always go, Knick-knack, Tabasco! You've got to.
Knick-knack, Tabasco! Right away, Monsieur Scaramanga.
Even if you're on your own, you look down and then shout it.
I was short-changed.
Hand it up.
I think I was only introduced to Tabasco maybe 10 years ago. And then it was like, oh, right, that's what you say. A bit weird. I love it though.
Tabasco's hotter than Worcester sauce.
Worcester sauce is absolutely fine, but Tabasco's got a bit of shunt to it. It's got a little forked tongue.
Chili in?
Yes, I think there's a little chili in there as well. It's
is that like
spicy for me?
Straight, this guy, you don't want to mess with him. Yeah.
It's hard as nails, yeah.
Don't mess with Tabasco. He's dangerous. Yeah, he's got a little forked tongue which you want to stay away from.
And let's also mention he's drinking Guinness as well.
Yes, well.
Yeah. What a lad, honestly.
Yeah.
What a lad. Now, it's also very important. Very important to remember that Guinness is a bottled Guinness, right? And it is slightly lively, and by that I mean that when you crack the top on it, it's got a little fizz to it. If you would they're still available now. They're the standard Guinness bottles. You can have your draft, you can have your zero, you can have your porter options, but the standard Guinness bottles with the gold paper on the top. If you pour that and you drink it, it's lovely. It's got a tiny little fizz to it. Just a touch. Now, to have that with, what does he have it with? Champagne and then Tabasco in it. That's a black. You wouldn't want many more than two of those before you started to feel like you were really having a great day.
Is it got a name, that drink? Is it?
Yeah, it's called. What's it called?
Black Velvet.
Black Velvet. There we go.
Well done.
Made famous by Alana Miles.
Yes, good.
Yes, it is. It's a very, very good drink, but you want to make absolutely certain you've got a good bite to eat during the course of the day, and realise you've cleared your diary for the rest of the day. And once you get into them, they are terrific. They're terribly good.
Taxi, hotel, mister?
No, the nearest pharmacy.
The first videos I ever got were Goldfinger and Tomorrow Never Dies 2 days before Christmas from Woolworths on a buy one, get one free. And then at Christmas, the next day, my mum bought me Golden Gun and Spy Who Loved Me. So Golden Gun was one of the first videos I ever owned. It was the one that I probably watched the most as a kid. It was mine and my brother's favourite for quite a bit, because I think I echo what everyone says, is it's a very childhood film. But the vivid memory I have, the one thing I just remember from watching that as a kid was Knick-knack, in a nappy, tridenting Roger Moore. And like that image is absolutely ingrained.
Scar you for life.
Oh, but when I don't know how to describe it, but so if I say, "Oh, did you watch Jaws?" Is that the what? Is that the film where the shark eats the guy? That kind of thing. Yeah. If anyone asks me, "Have you seen Man with the Golden Gun?" Is that the one with the midget in the nappy? I mean, that's what I'd be saying.
Stop it! Not here. This is my home. Take Mr. Bond to school.
But that's always been ingrained in my head. And I've been on a bit of a journey with Man with the Golden Gun now, and I can see the objective issues and the story issues, and I think they're fair comment. But I also see that there is a real need for silly Bond. And this is silly Bond. This is entertaining from start to finish. I've said this before, I've said it again. This is by far and away the most psychedelic James Bond film there has ever been. I mean, it's like it makes no sense, and yet it's like the Magical Mystery Tour, the Beatles album. It makes no sense, but it just goes everywhere, and it's phenomenal. Yeah, I love it. I've come to the point where I love it. Yeah, definitely.
Have we forced you to like it though, John?
No, I mean you're always pushing your agendas, Tom. But I've got my own mind. I can decide for myself. But you will like this. But I don't know. I think, if I'm being honest, one of the reasons why I have grown to like it more is I compare it to what we have at the moment. I think, especially with No Time to Die and how solemn that is, I think you go back to wanting comfort blankets. You go back to wanting to remind yourself of why you fell in love with this series at the first place. And whilst it's not one of my absolute favourites, as a child it was. And the reasons why I loved it was because of the colour and the imagination throughout it. And I can go back now and I can sit and watch it, and I can pour myself a non-alcoholic beer from Aldi, whatever that was called. Galahad, yeah. Galahad Zero. I'll pour a Galahad Zero. And then I'll have 2 hours and I'll come away feeling so good.
Yeah.
And that's it.
If I'm honest, it used to be one I was okay with. It wasn't my favourite, but over the years it really has grown on me, and I'm like, it's pretty fantastic, I think, now. I mean, the humour is very, very tongue-in-cheek, but who doesn't love a bit of cheek? And as to be said, scenery is wonderful. I hope one day to get to Thailand. That'd be fantastic. Christopher Lee as Scaramanga is mwah. Perfect casting, just amazing, and yeah, a very entertaining romp of a Bond film, and I'm happy to celebrate it.
I would have seen it first on that great British broadcaster, ITV. There you go, good lad.
Not bad.
And I remember as a kid, it was my favourite Bond film. I loved Roger Moore.
This is brilliant.
Before, I knew when a Bond film was coming on, I didn't know them all by name, but if I saw it was Roger Moore, I would think, oh, good, this is a fun one. Whereas if it was Sean Connery, I would tend to think, oh, these ones are a bit more boring. Never knew there was an age difference in the era the films were made. I thought they were made at the same time. And I did used to get The Man with the Golden Gun a little bit mixed up with The Spy Who Loved Me, because I thought the one with Sergeant Pepper, J.W. Pepper, and the car spinning over, I thought that was in the same film as the parachute jump. But I love The Man with the Golden Gun. I just thought it was just such a fun film. And it's funny because I watched it again last week with my daughter, who's 6. She's now seen, in the last 3 or 4 months, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, and The Man with the Golden Gun. And she loved it. But I said to her, can you put them in order? And she had The Spy Who Loved Me top, followed by Moonraker, followed by Man with the Golden Gun. And I just assumed as a kid I loved The Man with the Golden Gun so much she would rank that top. But watching it with her, I did think, this film has got some moments that aren't massively comfortable for children. The way, obviously, Bond treats, I want to say Octopussy, Maud Adams.
I'm good now.
You can argue he's obviously there doing his job, which is what I always argue. But in this time of sensitivities, which I completely get, that is a slightly uncomfortable scene. I think it's made slightly more uncomfortable that clearly Roger Moore didn't enjoy playing it that way, as he said himself. Probably if it was Connery, it might have come across as slightly more natural. There's something about that scene that is a bit uncomfortable to watch, and so it should be, I suppose.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, the film is just full of fun. I loved, I love the characters, I love the stunts, I love the pace. I absolutely love the pre-title sequence. I know with time you can now see that what is supposed to be a waxwork model of Roger Moore is actually Roger Moore, and not standing completely still.
Bravo, Monsieur Scaramanga. You've done it again. This one was the best, n'est-ce pas?
Not bad. Not bad at all. But you'll have to do better than that if you want to come into my money.
I get you yet, and I'll enjoy every sou you leave me.
You'll be the death of me yet, Knick-Knack.
Things that, with age, you've got to gloss over it. But you mentioned earlier that, a lot of Bond fans don't like it. I don't know how you can be a fan of the Bond movie franchise and not enjoy this film. It doesn't have to be your favourite. It doesn't have to be in your top 5. I do not understand how you can tell me this film is rubbish, because it is not, by any stretch of the imagination, rubbish. If you are just a film fan, you're really into Christopher Nolan's epics of recent years and things, and somebody showed you this, I could get why you might think it's awful. But you're not a fan of this franchise. And if you're a fan of this franchise, you should be loving all the great parts of this film, of which there are so many. The soundtrack, amazing. Roger Moore, brilliant. The stunts, incredible. Christopher Lee, what a villain. I mean, he's got to be in my top 3 villains of the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And I love the soundtrack. I love the song. I love Lulu's take on the song. I know John Barry wasn't keen on it, whatever, latterly. But, I think a lot of the criticism, even by the people involved with the film, only came later because the film didn't take as much money as Live and Let Die. Still took 12 times its budget, which is unheard of in this day and age. So, love it. First saw it on ITV. I've owned it on VHS. I've owned it on DVD. I've got it on Blu-ray now. And whatever comes next, if they ever release it in 4K, I'll probably buy it in 4K and I'll enjoy it over and over and over again. It is not a faultless film, but it is a fabulous film.
100%.
Wow. There you go. Well said.
Harry, we had it on video, didn't we? But then did we?
I'm trying to think. Did we? Because something prompted us while on holiday in America to get a copy of it. And was that our first official James Bond video that we had?
We did have Living Daylights because I think James...
Oh, yes. Yeah. But it was obviously in the American sleeve, that you pull the sleeve off at the top. Card case. And we got it in America, and we were so excited to get home and watch it. And then we put it in the video player, and it was because of that, the region, whatever, it was black and white. And we were absolutely devastated. I can picture that opening scene of Knick-Knack, approaching on the sand, being in black and white, like, what? And like trying everything to rescue. I don't think we ever watched it or saw it through, did we, in black and white? I don't know.
It worked on one video player we had, but maybe I've...
Oh, possibly.
Matt will obviously know this, so he's not here.
But at the same time, we must have, because I've got so many childhood memories of watching it. So I can't... Unless it was when the big long series came out with the image along the spines. I don't know.
007.
Yeah.
We did have it on video. We definitely had it on video.
Yeah, we must have, because I feel...
Recorded.
I can picture Dad's handwriting, actually.
Yeah.
On the spine. So, yeah. And it is absolutely ingrained in childhood. One that we'd all enjoy watching, really easily, comfortably watching. And I think, at the time, as when you're younger, we'd laugh at bits. But as I felt like as brothers, as we get older, we were laughing even more, kind of like, this is so funny. Like the Pepper moments, but, Knick-Knack. There are so many, moments to laugh at. And then, when maybe in my life when there was a bit of a Bond hiatus and I hadn't seen a few for a while, and it's interesting that like Steve brought up like Christopher Nolan, era and generation of film watchers, in cinema changed in my life a little bit, and film changed in my life, and I'm into the films, as you say, the Christopher Nolan films and similar and all those things. So then, like, revisit it. I don't know. Growing up, you tend to take yourself a bit more seriously. You go through a period where you want to take yourself a bit more seriously, and therefore you want films to be serious, and you want them to, have meaning and depth and all that. And then, so maybe I went through that phase, and then when revisiting The Man with the Golden Gun, you kind of, you're slightly aware that people might laugh at it now and not, think it's so good. You're kind of confronted with this, like, right, can I like this? Am I supposed to like this? Is this right? I still absolutely love it. But I think it was like when we did our review of it, and just going through it was so enjoyable and so much fun. And I think I love it more than ever at the moment. And it's like I think there is serious Bond in this. I love the dual aspect between Bond and Scaramanga. I think that's absolutely excellent. And just to clarify, I think this might have been my first Christopher Lee film, actually. I think this is how I know him. But anyway, so there is a serious element to it, but there's this silly side that we're talking about and how we want Bond to be silly. But then most recently, I think my appreciation for The Man with the Golden Gun is a third thing, which I think we've kind of talked about in our reviews, how unbelievably creative it is. Just so unbelievably creative. Visually, characters, and whether Barry's proud of this soundtrack or not, I think it's just absolutely magical. And again, when you're in that mindset of thinking, how does a modern cinema goer look back on The Man with the Golden Gun? And I think they can very easily, first reaction, oh, isn't that silly? And then cast it aside. But for goodness sake, look deeper than that. Like, this is so unbelievably creative, and at the time, the resources using all those things, and the massive, massive, massive balls to make a film like this, like to just go ahead with it, make it enjoyable for audiences, and it, like, the more silly I think it is, the more creative thing it is, the more I salute it as a piece of cinema, and being able to make it still belong to the James Bond franchise. It's an absolute accomplishment.
The thing you've got to remember as well is that Broccoli and Saltzman were pulling apart at this point. This was Saltzman's last one.
Yeah.
So, like I say, they come up with this fantastic film when they were at loggerheads, and Saltzman was trying to sell everything that he got to do with Bond, and it became a brilliant film to say what was going on in the background.
I also think that they tried very much to, once they'd hired Roger as Bond, they tried to do a similar exercise that they did with Sean by going Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and bang them out as quickly as possible. This is on the heels of Live and Let Die. Live and Let Die was the year before. This is the year after. They're really desperately wanting to go, let's shove this Bond at the audience. Look, we can still do this. And then, of course, the idea and the budget got bigger, and the general story got bigger. Therefore, they had to have a number of years off, enabling them to build 007 stage and create the interior for the Laparas. However, having those two films back to back, I think, is important. I'm not entirely certain that it would have worked if it had been Live and Let Die in 73 and this in 75. If they'd given it the 2-year gap, enabling it to work, maybe the audience might have gone off the boil a little bit. They were so used to having them knocked out quite quickly. As Bob says, it's the beginning of the end for the Saltzman and Broccoli
partnership.
Yeah, the partnership. It was all going south. So this was very much a Harry picture. This was very much a Saltzman picture. But they used to hand them off to each other. You're in charge of this one. No, you can do this one. And this was him. So he wanted to go on a sort of swan song, and that's why he was throwing a lot of ideas. And some of those earlier location ideas, it wasn't Iran mentioned as an earlier location, I think, and lots of wild and wacky ideas that only Harry Saltzman could come up with. you know, Cubby trying to keep himself quite focused on what was going on as far as plot and story and budget was concerned, whereas Harry was throwing caution to the wind and saying, "This, look, why wouldn't it be great if we did this?" and trying to push for that. So in that respect, I mean, it's terrific. It's great fun from start to finish, and it's an interesting change of direction from this to Spy. There's very clearly a sole focus, which is Cubby thinking, right, let's just make the story and the characters massively important without throwing in the weird and wacky characters, which they have in this, you know, JW and the little guy. Like, I always made the connection between Goldfinger and this is in Goldfinger, Sean goes up to the hotel room to try and find Masterson, and grabs hold of the keys that Lena has on her and opens the door, and he says, "You're very sweet," and walks into the room.
Miss?
Hey, would you... That's Mr. Goldfinger, sweet.
Yes, I know. You're very sweet.
And here, you know, Roger's going up with the bucket of champagne and bits and pieces, and he says, "I need this room." Oh, surprise! That character, you know, they're quite similar in that respect. They just happen to be there.
Please? I can't manage. Oh, you could open a door for me there.
I open champagne?
No, it's a surprise.
Oh, a surprise.
So there's lots of bits and pieces bouncing off each other, but I think it works on a number of levels, certainly.
Rocky Taylor has appeared in countless Bond movies as a stuntman and stunt coordinator, and one of his most prominent roles was in The Man with the Golden Gun, as one of the goons straight after the belly dancing.
The other great relationship you had, of course, was with Roger Moore, and you started working with Roger. Apart from The Saint, the first Bond was The Man with the Golden Gun, where you got to play the role. You got to play.
I played a part. Absolutely right.
Ahmed.
Me and another stunt guy called Terry Plummer, and we have a big punch up in the nightclub.
Yeah,
that's so good. He smashes my head against the mirror.
You really do have a magnificent abdomen.
Not from where I'm standing.
Now, there's a lovely story about that. So tell us what, because the fight arranger for that was Les Crawford for that little sequence. Tell us the story about, there he is. Look, being propped up and having Old Spice sprayed in his mouth.
Yeah,
the unmistakable splash it all over and then stick it in your gob. Rocky had been out the night before because apparently they weren't due to be on set that following day.
Now you got me. There you go.
Yeah.
Go on. So,
yeah.
Go on. You carry on. You do it much better than me.
So he wasn't supposed to be on set the following day. Then they got a phone call late on and said, "Look,
I've been out. That's right. I've been out and had a few beers."
Just a couple of shandies to keep warm, you know. And so then all of a sudden they needed to be in the studio at 6 o'clock. So Rocky goes in feeling diabolical, has a shower and a shave and gets himself all sorted. But Roger knew, but nobody else knew. And so during the fight, there's that moment where he grabs hold of Rocky,
my head against the wall.
His head against the wall. What do he keep saying to you while he's doing the bashing?
Does it hurt, Rocky? Does it hurt? And he put his hand. He did put his hand to cover it
The other
in
side.
my head.
Yeah.
But it was still funny scene. Terry Plummer and me.
Oh, that's Terry.
Oh,
Plummer.
Ahmed.
There's Ahmed.
Ahmed,
isn't it?
Now
Yeah.
that's your
Ahmed.
moustache, definitely. That's
You look
definitely
good.
your moustache. That is.
I like the look of you there, Rocky. It's a good look. That.
Yeah.
I wonder why that never caught on.
What was Roger like in the action stage?
Roger himself was a lovely man. Very
Yeah.
generous man. You could talk to Roger. Yes, I mean, I loved him. I really enjoyed his company.
Keep watching for part 2 of our celebration of 50 years of the Man with the Golden Gun, where we move on to Roger's performance and his Bond girls.